My wife said she was consoling my best friend after his divorce. They've been having an affair. Compassion is one of humanity's most beautiful qualities. When we see someone we care about in pain, our natural instinct is to offer comfort, support, and understanding. We celebrate people who show empathy during difficult times, who extend helping hands to those who are struggling, who demonstrate that human connection can heal even the deepest wounds. But what happens when compassion becomes a mask? What happens when the very kindness we admire in our loved ones is actually a carefully constructed lie designed to hide the most devastating betrayal imaginable? The story you're about to hear will make you question every act of kindness your spouse has ever shown to people in your inner circle. It will reveal how predators use emotional vulnerability as hunting grounds, and how the people closest to you can weaponize your trust in ways that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, friendship, and human decency. Subscribe now, because this tale of calculated emotional manipulation will change how you view relationships forever. Divorce is devastating. Watching someone you care about go through the pain of a marriage ending, dealing with lawyers, custody battles, and the complete reorganization of their entire life's heartbreak. When it happens to your best friend, someone who's been part of your life for years, the natural response is to offer whatever support you can provide. You want to be there for them, help them through the darkest period of their life, and show them that even though their marriage failed, they still have people who care about them. I'm Michael, 29 years old, and I work as an operations manager for a logistics company here in Tampa, Florida. My best friend Ryan has been part of my life since college. We were roommates, groomsmen in each other's weddings, and the kind of friends who could call each other at 3 a.m. without question. When Ryan's marriage to his high school sweetheart started falling apart last year, I watched him go through the kind of emotional devastation that changes a person fundamentally. My wife, Sarah, who I'd been married to for 4 years, seemed deeply affected by Ryan's pain. As a social worker, Sarah was naturally empathetic and had professional experience helping people through traumatic life transitions. When Ryan's divorce became official 6 months ago, Sarah immediately offered to provide emotional support during his healing process. Ryan is going to need all the friends he can get right now, Sarah said when she first volunteered to help with his emotional recovery. Divorce is one of the most traumatic experiences a person can go through, and I have the professional background to really help him process what he's feeling. I was grateful for Sarah's compassion and impressed by her willingness to extend her professional skills to help our friend. Ryan had always been somewhat socially awkward and didn't have a large support network beyond our friendship group. Sarah's offer to provide specialized emotional support seemed like exactly what Ryan needed during this difficult transition. Sarah began scheduling regular counseling sessions with Ryan, meeting with him twice a week at coffee shops, parks, and quiet restaurants where they could talk through his feelings about the divorce and help him develop coping strategies for rebuilding his life. Ryan is making real progress, Sarah would tell me after these counseling sessions. He's starting to process the anger and sadness in healthier ways, and he's beginning to think about what he wants his future to look like. I admired Sarah's dedication to Ryan's emotional well-being and her professional approach to helping him heal. As someone without training in mental health, I felt relieved that Ryan was getting expert guidance during such a vulnerable time in his life. For 4 months, Sarah maintained her regular counseling schedule with Ryan, spending hours helping him work through his emotions and develop plans for moving forward. She'd return home from these sessions with detailed updates about Ryan's progress and insights about his emotional state that demonstrated her deep investment in his recovery. Ryan told me today that he's finally ready to start dating again, Sarah might share over dinner. We worked through some of his fears about trusting women and developing new romantic relationships. Ryan opened up about some childhood issues that contributed to problems in his marriage. She'd tell me another time. We're exploring how those patterns affected his ability to communicate with his ex-wife. Sarah's knowledge of Ryan's inner emotional life seemed to grow deeper with each session, and I was impressed by the level of trust he was placing in her therapeutic guidance. The first sign that something wasn't quite right came when I noticed that Sarah's counseling sessions with Ryan were becoming increasingly frequent and lasting much longer than typical therapy appointments. Are you sure Ryan needs to meet with you 3 times a week? I asked Sarah when her schedule with Ryan began taking up most of her free time. That seems like a lot of therapy sessions for someone who's not in crisis anymore. Sarah explained that Ryan was going through a particularly difficult phase of his recovery and needed extra support to prevent him from sliding back into depression or making poor decisions. Divorced men are at high risk for substance abuse and risky behaviors, Sarah said. Ryan is in a vulnerable state right now, and consistent support is crucial for keeping him on a healthy path. Sarah's professional explanation seemed reasonable, though I was surprised that Ryan apparently needed such intensive therapeutic intervention months after his divorce had been finalized. The second warning sign appeared when Sarah began showing knowledge about Ryan's daily activities, work situations, and personal decisions that seemed to go beyond what would typically be discussed during counseling sessions focused on divorce recovery. Ryan is thinking about buying a new car, Sarah might tell me. We talked about how making positive changes in his life can be part of his healing process. Ryan mentioned that he's having problems with his upstairs neighbor playing loud music, she'd share. We discussed healthy ways for him to handle conflict and assert his boundaries. Sarah seemed to know intimate details about Ryan's living situation, work relationships, and daily experiences that suggested their conversations were covering much more than just divorce-related emotional processing. Sarah also began expressing personal concern about Ryan's well-being that seemed to extend beyond professional therapeutic interests. I'm worried about Ryan living alone in that apartment, Sarah would say. I don't think he's eating properly or taking good care of himself. Maybe I should check on him more often. Ryan seems lonely and isolated, she might tell me. I think he needs more social interaction and support than just our counseling sessions. Sarah's investment in Ryan's personal comfort and daily life decisions seemed to have evolved beyond normal professional boundaries. The situation reached a crisis point 5 months after Sarah had begun providing counseling support to Ryan, and I decided to surprise them both by bringing coffee and pastries to one of their therapy sessions. I knew they typically met at a small cafe near Ryan's apartment on Thursday afternoons, and I thought it would be nice to show up with treats and briefly join them to show my support for Ryan's healing process. When I arrived at the cafe and looked around for Sarah and Ryan, I didn't see them at any of the tables or in their usual quiet corner booth. I called Sarah's phone to ask where they were located in the cafe, and her phone rang from inside Ryan's apartment building, which was directly across the street from the coffee shop. I walked over to Ryan's building and followed the sound of Sarah's ringtone to Ryan's apartment door. When I knocked, there was a long pause before Ryan answered the door, looking disheveled and nervous. "Michael," Ryan said, clearly surprised and uncomfortable to see me. "What are you doing here?" I could hear movement inside Ryan's apartment and realized that Sarah was inside with him during what I had believed was a public counseling session at the cafe across the street. "Where's Sarah?" I asked Ryan. "I brought coffee for your therapy session." Ryan looked panicked and didn't answer immediately. Behind him, I could see Sarah emerging from Ryan's bedroom, adjusting her clothing and looking terrified to see me standing in the doorway. The scene made it immediately clear that Sarah and Ryan had been engaged in sexual activity during their supposed counseling session, and that their therapeutic relationship had become an affair. "This isn't what it looks like," Sarah said, echoing the cliche that every cheating spouse uses when caught in the act. But there was no mistaking what I had discovered. My wife had been having an affair with my best friend while claiming to provide professional therapeutic support for his divorce recovery. "How long?" I asked, staring at both of them as they tried to compose themselves and come up with explanations for the situation. Sarah and Ryan looked at each other with expressions that made it clear this wasn't their first time together or a spontaneous mistake. 3 months, Sarah finally admitted. 3 months. My wife had been having an affair with my best friend for 3 months while I believed she was helping him heal from his divorce and rebuild his emotional life. The revelation that Sarah's therapeutic support had been cover for a sexual relationship with Ryan was devastating enough. Learning that it had been going on for months while I praised her compassion and professional dedication made the betrayal even more crushing. I turned around and left Ryan's apartment, unable to process the complete destruction of both my marriage and my closest friendship in a single moment. I sat in my car outside Ryan's building for over an hour, trying to understand how the two people I trusted most had been systematically deceiving me while I supported and encouraged their relationship. Sarah eventually came outside and tried to get me to come back inside to discuss what had happened and hear their explanations for the affair. "Michael, please don't leave like this," Sarah said through my car window. "We need to talk about this situation and figure out how to handle it." But there was nothing to discuss or handle. Sarah had been using her professional credentials and my trust in her therapeutic abilities as cover for an affair with my best friend. "Get away from me," I told Sarah. "I never want to see either of you again." I drove home and spent the rest of the day trying to come to terms with the fact that my marriage and my closest friendship had been destroyed by their joint deception. That evening, Sarah came home and tried to explain their affair by claiming that her relationship with Ryan had developed naturally from legitimate therapeutic work. "Michael, what happened between Ryan and me wasn't planned," Sarah said. "I was genuinely trying to help him through his divorce, and we developed feelings that we couldn't control." But Sarah's explanation ignored the professional boundaries she had violated and the systematic deception they had both engaged in for months. "Sarah," I said, "you used your professional credentials to gain access to Ryan during his most vulnerable time, and exploited that vulnerability to start an affair. You've been lying to me about your activities for 3 months while I praised you for your compassion and professional dedication." Sarah initially tried to minimize the significance of her affair by claiming that her relationship with Ryan was primarily emotional and therapeutic rather than sexual. "Ryan needed emotional support, and I was providing that," Sarah said. "Our relationship evolved into something more intimate gradually." But Sarah's affair with Ryan hadn't evolved naturally from legitimate therapy. It had required deliberate violations of professional ethics and systematic deception about her activities. If you're feeling as betrayed as I was when I discovered my wife's affair with my best friend, you need to hit that subscribe button right now, because this story gets even more twisted when I learn what they had really been been doing during those supposed therapy sessions, what I discovered about their plans for the future, and how they had been manipulating both professional ethics and personal trust will show you that some betrayals are so calculated they deserve the harshest consequences. Ring that notification bell, because you won't believe what happened when their affair became public and how it destroyed both their careers and our entire social circle. Over the following days, Sarah and Ryan revealed additional details about their affair that made the situation even more painful and humiliating. Sarah admitted that she had begun developing romantic feelings for Ryan during their second counseling session and had continued providing therapy while pursuing a sexual relationship with him. "I knew I was developing feelings for Ryan early on," Sarah confessed when I pressed her for details about the timeline. "But I thought I could maintain professional boundaries while helping him through his divorce." Sarah had been conducting therapy with Ryan while sexually attracted to him, violating every ethical standard of her profession. Ryan admitted that he had been attracted to Sarah from the beginning of their counseling relationship and had encouraged her romantic interest while accepting her professional services. "Sarah was helping me feel better about myself and my future," Ryan said when I confronted him about his role in the affair. "When she started showing interest in me romantically, it made me feel like I was attractive and desirable again." Ryan had been using Sarah's professional therapeutic services as a pathway to seducing her, exploiting both her empathy and her professional dedication for his personal gratification. The most disturbing discovery was that Sarah and Ryan had been having sex in Ryan's apartment during every one of their supposed therapy sessions for the past 3 months, treating their professional relationship as cover for their affair. "We would start by talking about Ryan's feelings and progress," Sarah admitted when I demanded details about their activities. "But we'd end up having sex instead of doing actual therapeutic work." Sarah and Ryan had been conducting their affair under the pretense of professional mental health services while I paid for Sarah's lost income during her volunteer therapy time and praised her dedication to helping our friend. Sarah also revealed that she and Ryan had been discussing their long-term future together and had been planning for Sarah to leave our marriage once they figured out how to handle the professional and social complications. "Ryan and I talked about being together permanently," Sarah said when I asked about their intentions. "We were trying to figure out how to handle telling you and dealing with the fallout so that I could be with Ryan openly." Sarah and Ryan had been planning to destroy my marriage and my friendship while using my financial support and my gratitude for Sarah's fake professional dedication to facilitate their affair. Ryan admitted that they had been mocking me behind my back, laughing about how easily they had deceived me and how grateful I was for the very behavior that was destroying my life. "Sarah would tell me about how proud you were of her professional compassion," Ryan said, "and we would laugh about how clueless you were about what we were really doing." Sarah and Ryan had been treating my trust and my appreciation for Sarah's supposed professional dedication as entertainment while they conducted their affair at my expense. The investigation into their deception also revealed that Sarah had been lying to her supervisor and colleagues about her volunteer work with Ryan, claiming professional development hours for time she was actually spending having sex. "I reported my sessions with Ryan as professional development and continuing education," Sarah said, "but I was actually using that time to conduct our affair." Sarah had been committing professional fraud while conducting her affair with Ryan, violating both her marriage and her professional ethics simultaneously. When I demanded to know how both Sarah and Ryan could betray my trust and destroy our relationships for their own selfish gratification, they initially tried to claim that they had fallen genuinely in love and couldn't help their feelings. "Michael, we didn't plan for this to happen," Ryan said, "but Sarah and I developed real feelings for each other that were too strong to ignore." But Sarah and Ryan's affair hadn't been about uncontrollable love. It had been about exploitation, manipulation, and the willingness to violate professional ethics and personal trust to their immediate pleasure. "You didn't fall in love accidentally," I told both of them. "You exploited a professional therapeutic relationship to start an affair. You lied about your activities for months, and you used my trust and support as cover for your betrayal. That's not love. That's calculated manipulation." I told both Sarah and Ryan that I wanted them out of my life permanently and that I would never forgive them for their joint betrayal. Sarah initially tried to convince me that we could work through her affair with counseling and that she was willing to end her relationship with Ryan to save our marriage. "Michael, I made a terrible mistake," Sarah said. "I love you, and I want to fix our marriage. Ryan was a mistake that I regret completely." But Sarah's affair with Ryan hadn't been a mistake. It had been a months-long relationship that had involved professional fraud and the deliberate exploitation of vulnerable circumstances. I filed for divorce immediately, citing Sarah's adultery and professional misconduct as grounds for ending our marriage. I also reported Sarah's unethical conduct to her professional licensing board, providing evidence of her sexual relationship with someone she was providing therapy services to. The divorce proceedings and professional investigation revealed additional evidence of Sarah and Ryan's affair, including documentation that showed Sarah had been claiming professional development credits for time spent having sex with Ryan. Sarah's professional license was suspended pending investigation into her violation of therapeutic boundaries and fraud in reporting professional activities. Ryan lost his job when the affair became public and his employer learned that he had been conducting a sexual relationship with someone who was supposed to be providing him with professional mental health services. The most satisfying aspect of of the entire situation was learning that Sarah and Ryan's relationship didn't survive the consequences of their affair being exposed. Once their affair was no longer secret, and they had to face the professional, legal, and social consequences of their deception, Sarah and Ryan discovered that their relationship couldn't withstand the pressure. Sarah and I realized that our relationship was built on the thrill of forbidden romance and the dynamics of therapy. Ryan told me during a phone call months later. When we tried to have a normal relationship without those elements, we found out we didn't actually have much in common. Sarah and Ryan's affair had been sustained by the violation of professional boundaries and the excitement of deceiving me rather than genuine compatibility or love. Sarah lost not only her affair with Ryan, but also her professional license, her career, and her relationships with our mutual friends and social circle. Ryan lost his relationship with our entire friend group and his job, and was forced to move to another city to escape social consequences of his betrayal. 6 months later, divorce was finalized, and I was awarded most of our marital assets due to Sarah's adultery and professional misconduct. I've learned valuable lessons about professional boundaries, the exploitation of vulnerable circumstances, and the importance of maintaining awareness of the people who have access to your most trusted relationships. Sarah and Ryan's affair taught me that professional credentials and therapeutic language can be used as weapons for manipulation and deception, and that people are capable of exploiting even the most vulnerable circumstances for their personal gratification. I now understand that trust must be balanced with verification, and that professional relationships require strict boundaries and ethical oversight to remain legitimate. The experience has made me stronger and more capable of building authentic relationships with people who honor rather than exploit the vulnerability that comes with trust and professional responsibility.